Chapter 3. Let's get started. So, in the last chapter on desire, there was much discussion on knowing what it is one wants. So, distinguishing between a desire and a wish, listening to one's desires, and taking the first step into transmuting that desire from thought into physical reality. And that transformation started with the writing out what one wants, creating a plan, and getting started on it immediately. So, assuming you've done all that so far, there was a brief look into the call we must all take into leadership. So, at least in directing our own lives. And we saw how the leader's vision makes them dreamers for Hill. And lastly, there was the distinction between temporary defeat and failure, and how failure ultimately happens internally by giving up on one's desire or no longer believing it's possible to accomplish what they set out to do. In other words, a lack of self-confidence and not believing that you're capable of making it happen, or whatever that you've set yourself out to do is beyond your capability, and you think that it's just not possible to get there. So in this chapter, we'll look at Hill's conception of faith, and specifically faith directed towards oneself, and how for Hill, faith is a deeper form of self-confidence. So let's start there. Hill's metaphysics of faith. So the chapter starts with Hill discussing faith, and for Hill, faith is a kind of emotion which vibrates with thought to become something spiritual, which connects to infinite intelligence. So the emotion of faith mixed with strong thoughts or strong desire merge together into something which can communicate with infinite intelligence or God. And in this way, we can mix our faith with our desires, and it becomes a type of prayer. So Hill believes thoughts vibrate. Now, what does it mean when we say something like, thoughts vibrate? Or like, oh, you're giving me a good vibe, or something like that, right? You might conceive that as an idea that relates to the strength of one's thoughts. So a weak thought comes and goes and has low vibration, whereas an obsession or a thought that one cannot get rid of has a stronger vibration. And Hill would argue that people who come into contact with each other may also be able to pick up on these vibrations. So, for example, if I have a passing desire for cake, that vibration might be low. Whereas if I have a burning desire to lose weight, right, and I'm obsessed about it, and then the cake desire comes into my mind and it has a low vibration, it doesn't even compare to the high vibration of my desire to lose weight. I want it so bad I can't stop thinking about it. It's an obsession, and that all-consuming desire, let's say, gives off a vibration of thought, and Hill believes these can be felt. But without getting into telepathy, that's kind of what he means by a vibration of thought. So the stronger the thought, the more it vibrates. And if you mix it with an emotion of faith, it can become a prayer. So this stronger thought takes on a spiritual nature because it's something we really want and we can't stop thinking about it, and we mix it with an emotion of faith, it becomes spiritual. So how does, a strong desire mixed with faith become spiritual? And what does it even mean to say that, faith is an emotion? So to do that, we have to go into Hill's teleological infinite intelligence. Hill's teleological infinite intelligence. So you consider Hill's definition of infinite intelligence as God, or the universe, or any form of spiritual divinity you choose to believe in. Nevertheless, he believes that whatever this being is, or the spirituality is, the one thing that we know about it is that it has intelligence. And what does that mean to say that it's intelligent, right? So for example, if I have an orange seed and I plant it, I'm going to get an orange tree. It's not going to become an apple tree. So gravity does not turn off, not even for a second. If it did, everything would be completely destroyed. So all this to say for Hill that there is a creator who is intelligent, and the proof of that intelligence is that there is intelligence in the natural world. Therefore, because there is intelligence, we can connect to it via thought. And the more we want something, the higher chance infinite intelligence picks up on it, and our desires, and helps us to attain them. How does one develop faith? Hill believes that faith can be developed through autosuggestion, and he talks about this on page 52. And there is a whole chapter dedicated to the concept of autosuggestion, which we'll be coming to. But for now, it's enough to know that autosuggestion is forcing and repeating a thought to yourself until it becomes a habit or enters your subconscious mind. So repeatedly thinking the same thought and forcing it into your brain even when you forget it, until it becomes a thought habit or a thought pattern or enters your subconscious mind. So faith is defined as, and this is on page 52, namely, faith is a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. So faith, for Hill, is a mind state which can be created. So you're not born faithful, you must become faithful. How does one become faithful? Well, it's through the repetition of specific thought. And he gets into discussion of destructive faith. So Hill argues that repetition of affirmations of orders is the only way to get our subconscious mind to develop the emotion of faith. Because Hill argues that faith is an emotion, that means that it could be used negatively, or it has a negative aspect to it also. And he discusses this negative form where he gives an example of somebody who's first introduced to crime, and when they're first introduced to crime, they might be repulsed by it. However, if they remain around it, they become used to it or numb to it, and eventually the person might embrace it and become influenced by it. So this, for Hill, is proof that any thought habit we have, which we repeatedly pass to our subconscious mind, will eventually manifest itself in its physical equivalent. Why faith is important in this book. So again, the goal of this book is straightforward, and Hill assumes that maybe what we want as readers out of this book actually aligns with the goal that the author had intended for his readers and for his writing. And he writes on page 52, "Consider the purpose for which you are, presumably, reading this book, to acquire the ability to transmute the intangible thought impulse of desire into its physical counterpart, money." So if that is why we're reading this book, then the next best thing that we can do after that starting point is to believe that we're going to receive that which we're asking for. So by believing that your definite chief aim is attainable and being able to instill that faith into your subconscious, then your subconscious mind will pass it back to you in the form of faith, which will bring about actionable plans for getting that which you seek. So Hill is suggesting that faith will give you an actionable plan, which will help you attain your goal. And moreover, that when your desire starts to weaken in your conscious mind, your subconscious mind can kind of jolt it back into, it can reawaken that desire for you and keep it alive even when your conscious mind isn't doing it because of the repetition. Right? So the faith that you've developed and the thought patterns that you've strengthened or ingrained into yourself are an insurance plan, let's say, to keep you on track of your goals. I believe here that through repeating a thought to oneself until it becomes habit or reaches one's subconscious, you'll naturally come up with the ideas on how to make your desire real. For example, if I sit here and think about my goal, which is, let's say, going to Greece in 3 months. The problem is I have no money. However, I sit here and I become obsessed with this goal. I really want to go to Greece. I have to make it happen. I have 3 months to make it happen. Let's say it's, my buddy's wedding or something. I have to go out, whatever the reason for me wanting to go is beside the point. The point is I've made it a desire and I really want it. And by thinking about it so much, the thought can either go two ways. I lose hope, I become negative and give up on it before even trying. Oh, it's not realistic. There's no way I could save up enough money for me to go live or to go to Greece in 3 months and do whatever I want to do. Or I remain positive and resilient and I keep an open mind, and by thinking about it and believing I can make it happen and having the faith, right? I have faith that I can make it happen. I begin to think of ways to make it happen. Maybe I could start saving, X amount a day, like $5 a day or whatever it is. I can't do that. Well, start looking for a better job to make more money. I can't do that. Well, sell some stuff I no longer use that's been sitting in boxes in my storage. I don't want to do that. Then there's a million other actionable steps that will pop into my mind if I continue to think about the plan and how to improve it and how to get closer to it and believe that I can make it happen. So you might talk to your friends about it, who may, if they're not negative, give you fresh ideas on how it may be possible, even if you're not thinking about it. They might have opportunities for you to make extra money. Who knows? Now, change this process away from, my desire to go to Greece towards your definite chief aim. And it's the same thing. And faith is the glue which will keep you working towards it when you're met with failure, resistance, and the obstacles which naturally come. Because if you believe that it will happen, then it'll strengthen the resilience within you. It'll make you more open to opportunity. You'll try and fail, but realize failure is temporary, not permanent. I'm still going to make it happen. There's still time. If I don't make it in 3 months, well, guess what? I'm going to make it in 4, but we'll worry about that when we get to the 3 months. Until then, I'm going to try my best. Maybe I'll make it in 1 month if I try really hard. Whatever. The point is, if I believe and I have faith that I can make this goal happen, then we can build upon that, right? But if we don't even have that faith that this is actually going to happen, then any setback, any failure, any negative aspect that comes about on the path to the goal might be enough to stop me from it, might be enough to get me to fail, right? So faith is required and builds upon desire. And he writes on page 52, you may convince the subconscious mind that you believe you will receive that for which you ask, and it will act upon that belief, which your subconscious mind passes back to you in the form of faith, followed by definite plans for procuring that which you desire. Strength of emotions. The emotions of faith, love, and sex. On page 51, Hill writes, the emotions of faith, love, and sex are the most powerful of all the major positive emotions. And on page 53, he writes, the emotions or the feeling portion of thoughts are the factors which give thoughts vitality, life, and action. So, does the emotion behind a desire play a role in the attainment of it? Does how I feel about my goals serve in any way for me actually making it real? Our emotions are great drivers of action. The fear that comes with an impending deadline might make us work harder than the indifference of a deadline that's far away. And that's a basic fear, right? A deadline's not, it's serious, but it's not that serious if it's something, in the grand scheme of things, missing a 2% assignment at university isn't going to kill you. So it's a basic fear, right? But how serious you take that deadline is going to change a lot. The emotion you have of it, I need an A+, this is coming, I need to do it. So the emotion backed of the desire plays a great role to the action that you're willing to take. So imagine what one does when they're first in love. They plan dates, they spend more time flirting, going out of their way for their potential partner, they try to impress, they take care of themselves more, they surprise each other with cute gifts, pay more attention to little off-the-cuff remarks, and all this to impress their beloved. They're more vulnerable in conversation, they're more curious, they ask more questions. All this to say that, that strong emotion of a first love brings about so much action, right? So our emotions push us, and they give us more strength than just reason and logic. So, for example, I could know that, let's say, going to the gym is the best thing for me to do right now. Logically, it's good for my health, it's good for my physical nature, but I'm not going to do it. I don't feel like it. My emotions got me feeling like I want to be lazy right now. So logically, I could know what to do. But if our emotions are very strong, our logic won't always push us through. Right? If I'm feeling super depressed and sad and don't want to leave the house and I don't care what anybody says, it doesn't matter the logic and the reasoning behind my going to the gym. Right? So the emotions could stop it from happening. Of course, we learn to control our emotions and we can push through, but the point here is that emotions have a great role in the actions that we take towards anything. And if we can learn to direct and enhance our emotions in a positive way towards our goals backed by faith, then it would have serious power in getting us closer to the attainment of our goals. Bad luck. Are you bad luck? Do you have bad luck? What is bad luck? Hill states that the subconscious mind does not discriminate between thought impulses of positive or negative, and this leads millions of people to experience what they think is bad luck. And he writes this on page 54. There are millions of people who believe themselves doomed to poverty and failure because of some strange force over which they believe they have no control. Of course, there are things outside of our control. However, most people expect bad results, and that's exactly what they get. Their faith is destructive, right? So the faith there, they believe it's going to happen, and they don't believe that what they're choosing to do will go good. Right? So their faith is destructive. And the development of faith comes with practice and action, not only by reading this book, and that he goes into that on page 55. So if you continuously repeat to yourself that you have faith, that you're a faithful person, that and believe that it's developing in yourself, then your brain will eventually change its nature into believing it. So the brain attunes itself to our dominating thoughts. And on page 55, he writes, "Understand this truth, and you will know why it is essential for you to encourage the positive emotions as dominating forces of your mind and discourage and eliminate negative emotions. A mind dominated by positive emotions becomes a favorable abode for the state of mind known as faith." So a conscious and consistent effort to shaping our thought patterns towards a positive desire we deem worthy is how we develop a positive form of faith, right? So I'm consciously and continuously believing that I can make this goal happen. The desire in chapter 2 that we were talking about, and the 6 steps that I had to fill out, the exact amount of money, what I'm going to do to get it, what my plan is, when I'm going to get it by, what I'm willing to sacrifice, and then reading and repeating it to myself doesn't mean anything if I don't believe it's going to happen. So this is adding on to your desire, right? You say you want riches, or at least that's the point of the book, right? To make us wealthy. So we say we want to get rich, but do we believe that we can get rich? Do we have faith in ourselves that we can become the kind of person that becomes rich? Can we develop in ourselves those habits and the skills and the plan? And do we believe that we can overcome any obstacle at it? Do we believe that we're actually gonna get rich or change rich for whatever your goal is? Do you have faith that you can make it happen? And the way you do that is by constantly, and it's a conscious effort, into destroying the negative thoughts and feeding it with positive emotion, feeding it with positive thought, planning better, right? Until it becomes a habit. But even when it becomes a habit, doesn't mean you stop, right? So you want to become faithful to, in your own ability, that your goal that you've set out for yourself will actually come into reality, will come to pass. You will make it happen. You do believe that it's possible, and you do believe that you're getting closer. Even if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're actually getting closer or progress is being made, you believe that progress will soon happen, or that you will soon make a breakthrough, or that you believe that you'll continue even if there is no breakthrough for a while, right? So the faith is a core component, and it's an emotional state, and it strengthens the desire that you have. Faith is a state of mind which may be induced by autosuggestion. As we saw earlier, Hill argues that faith is a mind state, and this state of mind can be created by autosuggestion, which is repetition of thought until it becomes subconscious or a thought habit. And on page 56 he writes, "Faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. If you don't have faith that your desires can be actualized, then you will simply not act. If you do somehow, from some miracle, act, even though you think it won't happen, and you're met with any kind of resistance, you're more likely to give up, right? You could be like, oh, see, I knew it wouldn't happen. And then, oh, I knew it was going to be met with challenges. It's not meant to happen, or I knew I'm not the kind of person that can do this, or whatever negative thought aligns with your negative faith, right? The faith that you can't make it happen, or that it's not possible, or that somewhere deep inside you knew that you couldn't actually get rich, or whatever your goal is. So you gotta destroy that negative faith, and you have to build it into a positive faith that turns into a self-belief that you can make this happen. So a person of faith persists longer, pushes harder, and in their weakest moments can still draw power because they believe it's meant to happen, right? Imagine having that kind of confidence in yourself, like a deep faith in yourself that you can accomplish that which you actually set your heart towards. Any goal that you set, you know that you can make it happen, that kind of self-belief. And of course that could get negative, right? But the point here is that many people don't even have the faith in their own goals. So that's what we're trying to build, is that positive faith towards our own goals that will make us resistant to negative change, obstacle, resistance, whatever. So again, our chapter 2 is about desire. This one is to build faith in that desire. So do I believe that I can even make what I discussed in chapter 2 happen? Do I believe that I can make my goal come to reality? And on page 56, Hill writes, "Faith is the starting point of all accumulation of riches." Faith, self-suggestion. And here's a long quote from page 57. "It is a well-known fact that one comes, finally, to believe whatever one repeats to oneself, whether the statement be true or false. If a man repeats a lie over and over, he will eventually accept the lie as truth. Moreover, he will believe it to be the truth. Every man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts which he permits to occupy his mind. Thoughts which a man deliberately places in his own mind and encourages with sympathy, and with which he mixes any one or more of the emotions, constitute the motivating forces which direct and control his every movement, act, and deed." So here Hill is putting his metaphysics hat on and argues for the existence of the ether, where all thoughts are recorded and stored. And I'm not going to focus on the metaphysics of the ether here. Just know that when he says the ether, that's what he's referring to. And on page 58 he writes, "Any thought, idea, plan, or purpose which one holds in one's mind attracts from the vibrations of the ether a host of its relatives, adds these relatives to its own force, and grows until it becomes the dominating, motivating master of the individual whose mind it has been housed." Let's quickly recap desire and faith and how they work together. So first you have the desire, then the desire becomes a plan and an idea, or an idea and then a plan or purpose, and is placed in your mind and stays there through repetition of thought. So it's easy to have a desire, but unless you believe it can be possible, there's little chance you will act towards its realization. So sure, I can say I have a desire to make $1 million, but if I don't believe I can make that a reality, why would I even bother trying? So again, if I do somehow start acting towards it while still believing it won't happen, I don't have faith, I will give up at the first sign of resistance, if not the first, then the second or the third or whatever. The point is that if I don't have faith to believe that I can make it happen, then sooner or later the negativity will get to me and I'll probably stop. Maybe someone whose opinion I hold deeply will tell me I can't make it. So an external negative faith, right? And if I don't have sufficient belief in myself, then that may be enough resistance to get me to kill that desire before I even do anything about it. So it simply becomes another thought that entered my brain and left. So today I desired $1 million. Tomorrow I desire a cookie. I don't know, something like that. My desire has to be backed by faith, a strong belief that I can make this happen. So you first need your definite chief aim, which came about in chapter 2. And then you need to have, at the bare minimum, the faith that is possible to actualize it. Then the idea, plan, and purpose must be repeated in your mind until it becomes an obsession or the dominating thought of your mind. And this is why Hill argues that one must commit their definite chief aim to their memory and repeat it daily, quietly in their mind or aloud, until it becomes a thought habit. The greatest weakness in attaining one's goals. So if I were to ask you right now, what do you think is the greatest weakness which stops one from accomplishing their goals? What is the number one weakness that gets us to fail? On page 59, Hill argues that the greatest weakness is a lack of self-confidence, and he writes, "Resolve to throw off the influences of any unfortunate environment and to build your own life to order. Taking inventory of mental assets and liabilities, you will discover that your greatest weakness is a lack of self-confidence." And he continues, "This handicap can be surmounted and timidity translated into courage through the aid of the principle of autosuggestion. The application of this principle may be made through a simple arrangement of positive thought impulses stated in writing, memorized, and repeated until they become a part of the working equipment of the subconscious faculty of your mind." The self-confidence formula. Do we believe that self-confidence can be taught? Do you have faith that you could be more self-confident than you are, more confident? So if self-confidence is the biggest weakness we have while chasing our goals, and it seems to make sense, right? Like if I don't believe I can make it happen, if I don't have self-confidence, then in any goal I pursue, then all the negativity will be strengthened in its power to get me to stop acting towards it. I need to believe that I could do it. I need to believe that I am a capable person, or I can become a capable person, and have faith in what I'm doing. So to develop self-confidence, Hill presents the self-confidence formula. And the goal here is to inject positive affirmations which assist you in the attainment of your definite chief aim, or your main goal, or your desire from chapter 2. And when we are experiencing defeat, obstacles, problems we don't know how to overcome, and there is no encouragement from others, then we only have ourselves. So the time to be a leader and carry your team, which is only you at this point. If you can't even carry yourself, then you will never be able to carry a team. So it would do you no harm to place these thoughts in your mind, and if they become habit, all the better. This is on page 59 and on to page 60. So first, I know that I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here and now promise to render such action. Second, I realize the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. Third, I know through the principle of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of attaining the object back of it. Therefore, I will devote 10 minutes daily to demanding of myself the development of self-confidence. Fourth, I have clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim in life, and I will never stop trying until I shall have developed sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. Fifth, I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve others. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity because I know that a negative attitude toward others can never bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day with full faith that it will gradually influence my thoughts and actions so that I will become a self-reliant and successful person. A lot could be said about that self-confidence formula, right? Do you believe it's possible to just read these affirmations and become a self-confident person? Do the thoughts being injected by reading the self-confidence formula, and if we reflect on them, allow us to have an opportunity to strengthen our self-confidence? If I just read that affirmation and not give it any deeper thought, right? If I just read it and not think about it or act upon it or take it seriously or back it with emotion, right, then it'll most likely do nothing. Right? The same way we could read positive quotes and they don't actually do anything to our lives. You have to believe it. You have to put emotion behind it. You have to repeat it, memorize it, take it seriously, find ways to apply it, start applying it right away. Negative autosuggestion. What is autosuggestion again? And can it be used negatively? So if we have created by our control or that of others thought habits and patterns that are negative and we believe them and have faith in them, then they can cause us harm just as easily as they can carry us to the heights of achievement. And Hill writes on page 61, on the other hand, if used destructively, it will destroy just as readily. And Hill emphasizes that the subconscious mind will not discriminate, again, between constructive or destructive thoughts. So Hill puts monumental weight on our thoughts. We know that from the introduction and up until now. So our thought habits, along with any thoughts which we entertain, have the capacity to dictate our entire lives. And he writes on page 62, so will the law of autosuggestion lead you to peace and prosperity, or down into the valley of misery, failure, and death, according to your degree of understanding and application of it. Do our thoughts really have that kind of power? Will believing that I can actually make my goal happen get me closer to actually making my goals happen, right? Is having faith in my goal enough? Will having faith in my goal boost my chances of making it actually happen? Or will it just make me feel better, right? Like if I actually believe that it'll happen, will it just make me feel better? And that's debatably worth it, even if it is just that. Do our thoughts have this kind of power? And is channeling a faith or developing a faith in our goals enough to get us closer to them? Or is that a necessary step? And Hill pulls a verse, and he doesn't cite from where. It might be his own, regardless. I'm going to read it. It's on page 63, and here it is. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it is almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out of the world we find, success begins with the fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. On page 64, Hill gives some words of encouragement, and he writes, somewhere in your makeup, there lies sleeping the seed of achievement which, if aroused and put into action, would carry you to heights such as you may never have hoped to attain. What a nice thing to believe, to have faith that there's something in us that if we are activated and act towards it, can so radically change our lives and get us closer to what we want and our goals and our dreams, that all we got to do is find it and act on it and nurture it. But it's there. It's somewhere inside us. And it starts with a desire backed upon a belief that you can make it happen. In closing of chapter 3, faith does not need to be something abstract which is reserved to religion. And rather, for Hill, it's a mind state of complete belief that one will get that which they're after. Even if our self-confidence fails us, because in the moment we feel we cannot do something, our faith can carry us because we believe it is meant to happen. And we need that kind of belief in our goals, that kind of faith. And again, this is developed through emotionalizing our desires and through autosuggestion, which is repetition, and is also the next chapter. So I'll see you next time. He had came